UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Welcome to Franchise Fatigue, the little podcast on the United Federation of Podcast Network, where your hosts take a look at movies, remakes, and sequels. And joining me for this bloody affair is my good friend, Zach Moore. Zach Moore, what are you drinking there? It looks red.
It's blood, Brandon.
Oh, yeah. Right on. How you been?
Good. You like my new sunglasses?
I do. I love your car, too. That car is pretty killer.
Chicks did the car.
Chicks dig the car. That's right.
Yeah.
You know what else they dig? Sexy voices, and we have one joining us.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Lance, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Great. I'm very good. We haven't had you on since the wonderful Terminator Salvation review, but we are going to be doing the Blade trilogy for you fine folks listening here, and I'm excited to be talking about them with you guys. These are a first-time watch for me. Can you believe that?
It's about time.
It is
something was the first time watch for you.
Yeah.
Watching all this nonsense.
All
Creep
these garbage
Show
Creep Show 3 nonsense. I going into this, I was a little pessimistic because I'm like, I'm not big on vampire movies, and I'm not big on comic book movies. I mean, the only Marvel Cinematic Universe movie I've seen was Doctor Strange, and I saw it under protest because my wife wanted to see it.
That is insane. Like, why that one? Why did your wife want to see that one? Is she a big Sherlock fan?
She's a fan of Cumberbatch.
She's got a crush on Cumberbatch.
Is Star Trek Into Darkness your favorite Star Trek movie?
I think it is.
Oh, that's terrible. You need to reassess.
It is the best of the trilogy.
Are you serious?
No way.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll have another discussion
No
about that
way.
another time.
That's for a future episode of Franchise Fatigue.
So
Absolutely.
you don't like vampire movies, you don't like comic movies, so this is just the movie for you, Brandon, I think.
Yes. Now, I will say that I may have actually seen this before. I think this is a first-time watch all the way through, but there was definitely parts of this movie that I'd seen before. You know, like I knew the song, Confusion, right? And I had seen that scene. And I'd seen that really fat vampire.
Yeah, disgusting.
Right? So I don't know if they were just images that I saw, but so there was a few things in here that I'd seen, maybe a scene here or there, or I walked in on it when somebody was watching it, or maybe I'd actually seen it and forgot about it. I mean, like that's completely plausible too. So,
yeah, I didn't have much of a history with these films either. I was aware of them, obviously, but being rated R when they came out in the late 90s or 2000s, I was under 17. So being a law-abiding citizen I didn't see him in the theater.
You didn't have to break the law to see it.
Well, and then much like you, Brandon, I'm not like a vampire guy. I'm like, vampires and everything. But I recently watched them for this and, crossover tie-in here, I guess. On my other podcast, Always Home to Smallville, on our Patreon, we do commentaries of superhero films. And Lance and I do commentaries together over there.
Okay.
And we decided to do the Blade trilogy. I'm like, well, I better watch. These have been a blind spot on my superhero fandom for many years.
Nice.
So I watched them recently, and Lance has been a fan since the beginning.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't listen to your other show, Superman comic books, as I may have just said something about.
Benedict Cumberbatch is in it.
Wow, I'm all in now.
So we're all kind of coming to this from different places. So this should be a fun conversation.
Lance, so tell us a bit about your history with these films.
I remember seeing Blade in the theaters, and I was excited to see it because, growing up, like I was a Snipes fan because, I love Major League, Passenger 57, Demolition Man.
Tu Wong Fu, thanks for everything, Julie Newmar.
Yeah, no, White Man Can't Jump, New Jack City. So, like, I've been a fan of Wesley Snipes for a long time, and so when I saw that he was going to be a superhero and a vampire slaying one, like that was automatically really cool because he's always, in a few of his movies he's demonstrated his martial arts prowess, and that was always kind of cool to see, especially like growing up, because there wasn't a whole lot of black martial artists featured in a lot of films. When I was growing up, he was definitely a movie star, and for him to have that added facet to his repertoire was really kind of neat. And so I was all in for the beginning. I had some knowledge of Blade prior to, because Blade was, to me, introduced in the 1994 Spider-Man animated series. He was introduced in that to me. So that's when I was like, oh, well, this is kind of cool. And I was a fan ever since then. And then when he got his own movie, I was doubly hooked with my prior knowledge and the fact that Wesley Snipes, one of my favorites, was going to be Blade.
So this is Marvel?
Yes.
So, like, does he show up in, like, the new Marvel Cinematic Universe at all?
No, but there are plans for him to be included in some fashion in phase, what is it, 4 now?
Yeah, as of this recording, there has been no Blade movie or TV show, but they actually announced the actor.
Mahershala Ali.
From True Detective and Moonlight.
Moonlight and Green Book.
Green Book.
Oh, he's awesome.
So he's going to play Blade but they haven't said what it's going to be. Is it going to be a Disney Plus show?
Yeah, they haven't decided.
Is it going to be a movie? But he is Blade.
I'm going to guess this is not going to be a Disney Plus show.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it would fit right in perfectly with like Daredevil and all the Netflix Marvel shows, but those don't exist anymore. So, anyway, the MCU hasn't gone rated R yet. That'd be a great opportunity.
I agree.
So. Have you seen, what are you talking about, Deadpool?
That's Fox.
Yeah, it's not the MCU
We'll talk off microphone. I'll explain superhero movies to you later, Brandon.
No,
it's not the time.
Oh, yeah, fine. Then I got to ask, though, just because we mentioned this guy, have you seen True Detective Season 3 yet?
No.
Oh, it's so good. All 3 seasons are amazing.
Yeah, of course you would be the guy who likes Season 2 of True Detective.
It's all great. That's like, it's like The Godfather 3. Compared to the other 2, it's not as good, but it's still amazing. It's like, it's good stuff. That's all I got to say on that.
Well, let's get into some trivia, guys. Now, the character Blade first appeared in the comic The Tomb of Dracula number 10 in 1973. Now, David S. Goyer, who you might know from the Dark Knight trilogy and other projects, he first pitched the idea of doing a Blade movie to New Line. To them, the studio, they felt like there were only 3 people who could play the role. Denzel Washington, my favorite actor. Lawrence Fishburne, who I could have seen doing this, especially seeing how he went on to be Morpheus in the Matrix trilogy. Mm-hmm. And then Wesley Snipes. All A-listers, late 90s. Think about this. Like, as you said, Lance, he was a movie star back then. But to David Goyer, Wesley Snipes is always the perfect choice for Blade. And in fact, he wrote the script with Snipes in mind to play Blade. Now, Snipes had actually become attached to the project because he was in discussions with Marvel Comics. There wasn't a Marvel Studios at the time, just Marvel in association with Marvel, all that stuff. Marvel Presents characters created by Marvel. This is way before any kind of cinematic universe or studio they had. But he was in talks with them to be in Black Panther. And of course, that film didn't come out then, but it did come out in 2018. It was nominated for Best Picture that year at the Oscars.
Got a couple other wins, too.
That's right. It actually won some as well for score,
costuming.
Costume design. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Now, Wesley Snipes, he was a fan of Hong Kong martial arts and that style. He wanted a film to have that kind of action. You can definitely tell, the way he moves around, it's very, Bruce Lee-esque, I would say.
Yes.
And that's part of the reasons why I enjoy this franchise so much. Is just seeing like an actor do some real impressive kung fu moves. This is the kind of stuff I want to see Batman do. But they always have Batman I'm going to punch someone slowly. It's like, Batman's supposed to be an amazing martial artist.
Yep.
But anyway, Wesley Snipes brought a lot of that to the role, and it definitely shows. Chris Christopherson's character, Whistler, he was created for Blade's appearance on Spider-Man the Animated Series, the episode you mentioned, Lance, where Blade comes on. And he was liked so much that they decided to incorporate him into the Marvel Universe proper, the comics, and then, of course, made his way into this film.
Kind of like Harley Quinn. She started on a TV show, too.
That's right.
She?
Yeah,
Yes.
Batman the Animated Series. Very good, Brandon.
Yeah.
Who says you don't know anything about comic books and superheroes? Good job.
Not that I don't know anything. I just don't watch the movies or anything. So.
Now, a miscasting opportunity. Jet Li was offered the part of Deacon Frost, but he decided to do Lethal Weapon 4 instead. So I really can't, fault the guy for doing Lethal Weapon 4. But
He's great in Lethal Weapon 4, by the way.
Yeah, he is great. Who isn't like Jet Li, right?
Jet Li's amazing.
And speaking of Deacon Frost, he was reinvented for the film Reimagined here as kind of like a Gen X kind of character. In the comics, he's an older German character with white hair and heavy accent.
Like Whistler.
He
looks like Whistler in the comics.
Now, Quinn, Deacon Frost's henchman, he was originally had a much smaller part, but Donnell Logue, he was so funny on set that his character was expanded and he was allowed to ad-lib a good portion of his dialogue. And I got to say, like, I believe now I can say this with 100% sincerity, he is my favorite villain henchman, I think, in any superhero movie. Because this guy's just hilarious. Just wandering around. Like, I don't know, like, that's...
More than Bob the Goon.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But the thing about him is, in this movie, and we'll talk about it, obviously, but, like, he has a lot of character to it. Like, the role of, like, the henchman of the main bad guy is such a thankless role. And usually it's just like a generic, like, I'm going to do what he says, right? But he has a lot of fun with it, and it comes through the screen. So I can see why they kind of gave him more material to work with. Stan Lee almost had a cameo in this film. It was filmed. It was ultimately cut. He played one of the cops at the very first scene in the club with the bloodbath. Like when all the cops come in and they find, Donald Logue's character's burned body. He was going to be one of those cops, but they ended up cutting that from the film. So even back then, they were doing a thing about Stan Lee cameos in Marvel movies. Now, you mentioned the car earlier, Brandon. Blade's car is a 1968 Dodge Charger with various modifications. Now, is that the same cars they had in The Bullet, the Steve McQueen movie? They're driving through San Francisco.
I think they had a Charger
was like a big
in Bullet.
deal.
Yeah. Isn't it also the current Pattinson Batmobile?
Yeah, I know, right? Robin Pattinson Batmobile is like a Ford Taurus with a spoiler on it. But anyway, yeah. But I'll tell you right now, Blade has a much cooler car than Robert Pattinson's Batman. We haven't seen it in action as of this recording, but the pictures had just come out recently, and it's all the buzz on the internet. So,
well, I mean, we got to talk Robert Pattinson. I mean, with the vampire connection, right?
Exactly. Right. It all ties together.
It works.
Right? Now, in the scene where Quinn comes to life again in the hospital. And he's all, Donald Logue has all the burn makeup and stuff on. He fell and he dislocated his jaw, and he had to be rushed to a hospital. But he couldn't talk, and they put him in a hospital. And they thought, was this guy here for burn, like as a burn victim or what? They didn't know. But eventually they fixed his jaw, and he explained he'd been in a motorcycle accident in the past, and that makes his jaw kind of like fragile if you hit it a certain way, and it unhinges and gets locked in place. But can you just imagine them wheeling this guy in? Like, oh my God, it's a 3rd degree, 4th degree burns on this guy, and it's just a silly actor. So now the first cut of this movie was 140 minutes long and had a very disastrous test screening, apparently, with audiences. And so they had heavy edits and reshoots, and it delayed the actual release of this film for about half a year. But the most significant change was the final confrontation became a sword fight between Blade and Deacon Frost. Originally, it was going to be like a CGI blood monster, which you see hints of, but I think it was a very wise decision to have an actual physical confrontation. Remember, this is 1998. The CGI in here is kind of spotty sometimes, to be honest. So that might have played a part in it, but I definitely agree.
But you can't necessarily blame the time for their technology, because like they were doing what they had.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
yes, we can.
I'm just saying, like,
yes, we can.
It's 1998. Like, know that you can't do a giant CGI monster at the end of your movie, right? And hey, any movie with a sword fight gets like 5 more points from me.
I mean, I go to an example. Have you guys seen Sphere? The movie Sphere?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So in that one, they have a big fire, right, in that movie? Well, in the book, it's like a giant squid that attacks them at that time.
It would have been so cool.
Yeah, but I mean, they can't quite do that in 1998, right?
They did it in 1954 with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Don't tell me
it's true.
You couldn't do it in 1998. But I see your point.
Just get in there and roll around in them.
yes, Plan 9 from Outer Space. Very good. Or Ed Wood. So, last couple bits of trivia. Michael Morbius was actually planned to be the main antagonist, and as of this recording, there's a Morbius film coming out starring Jared Leto, the Joker himself, everyone's favorite Joker, Jared Leto. And so he's gone on to do a solo film of that character. Because there were different rights at the time, like all these Marvel characters were split up on all these studios in the 90s. So like Sony had the rights to that character. They wanted to save him for his own project, so they didn't have him be the antagonist. They had Deacon Frost. And then finally, in an earlier draft, Blade killed Whistler. Whistler didn't shoot himself. Blade killed him. And then his another alternate version of that is because in the film his fate is uncertain. At the very end of the film, when Blade goes to Russia and he sees the vampire, that vampire was going to be Whistler.
Okay.
But they decided not to do that because, I think that's very important. They decided just to kill off Whistler, because it'd be stupid to bring him back, I think. Don't you guys think that'd be amazing? That's a big emotional moment of the film. So I'm glad they didn't undo that death by bringing him back after they killed him.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
Excellent. Right on. Well, I don't quite know where to start with this one here because I'd like Lance to maybe take the reins on this one here because this movie is important for him.